We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, if you need just a little bit of extra college football content to get you through the days, to get you through the nights, subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. If you want to donate to our channel today, just hit that $ with the comment. We'll get you a comment as soon as possible. Welcome into the house that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue, the great Kirk Gowdy. Welcome on in. We have a stack show today. Yeah, we're coming on a little bit early. Remember, if you are part of the PATC community, you have to keep your head on a swivel. You'll never know when we're going to pop up. So you got to subscribe to our channel. You got to follow our Twitter account at Flag Umpire. We can give you a little bit of a heads up, but we can come on at any time, especially right now. Right now, what is it? April 28th? April 28th. Interesting. It's the day, it's the start of the hot bubble that Arizona State Money Perch, our source, told us all the way back a couple weeks ago on our live show on April 15th. You can go back, give it a watch. Our Arizona State Money Perch released another letter. We read it here live, about 90% of it. We read it. And he said, first 2 weeks in May, April 28th and May 17th was the hot bubble of action where it's all going to come together. Either way, we're going to get a decision. That's what he has been told. And remember this, for those who haven't been watching our channel, you would have to go back to the episodes and live channels to understand what I'm about to say fully. But he's been dead nails on this story from the beginning. January 31st, she said that Arizona State was very upset about a January 30th, the day before PAC-12 meeting. He said they were very upset with the process. And then a couple weeks later, Arizona State Athletic Director basically says everything in public that our money perch guy said that Arizona State said in a Pac-12 meeting. Over and over again, Arizona State said there was no deal on the table, no comprehensive deal. While other people were reporting certain dollar figures per school per year, this media company, that media company, Arizona State money perched was telling us it doesn't mean anything because we really don't have anything in front of us. Arizona State money perch said at the very beginning it would be Arizona that would have to move first for Arizona State to follow. Then later on he said that's not true anymore. We'll probably leave together. Arizona State doesn't need Arizona to leave. Later on in this episode, we're going to be talking about this. Well, we got a lot of updates. We got a lot of information. So I'm going to give it to you as best I can in an entertaining fashion, hopefully. But let's just say Arizona State is playing bad cop. Arizona is playing good cop when it comes to the Pac-12 negotiations. We'll get into that. If you see flashing lights behind me, we have the TV on. We have the Big Ten Network channel on because at noon Central Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, the new Big Ten Commissioner, Tony Petitti, is going to be having a press conference. So at the end, in about an hour and 40 minutes, we're going to be checking on what he's going to say. We think it's going to be all boilerplate. Yeah, I don't think he's going to give us really good information. I hope he gives us some clarity on future Big Ten scheduling, what his thoughts, what his vision is. But I don't expect much, but we'll cover a little bit at the end of that, at the start of the press conference, at the end of this show. So before we get into what we're going to talk about today, let's get to our sponsor. We are so fortunate to have Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. We invite you to discover the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters difference. Clean, hot air roasted coffee produces a smoother, a richer, a healthier coffee that is less bitter and less acidic. Our hot air roasted coffee uses convection heat to loft the beans for very even heat transfer. The clean, bright taste that people rave about is achieved by roasting the bean quickly and evenly while suspended on a bed of hot air. From craft to cup, hand-picked coffee beans, the smoothest coffee, the wife the little general has ever had in her life. So go to the link provided in the description box below. Hit that link. Go to the website. Order the best bag of beans of coffee you're ever going to get. And if you want to support this channel while doing so, please put PATC in the comment section in the website. We thank you so much. And you also can visit our merch store. Again, the link is provided in the description box. New merch is coming. Plus a special merchandise, a special product from the little general herself will be popping in here in a couple months, just in time for the 2023 college football season. We're very excited. It's very unique, so buckle up. And again, while you're in the chat room, there's a lot of cloak and dagger going on. Oh boy. Woo! Cloak and dagger. You know the rules. If you don't, read them. Okay. First of all, let me just thank the people who've come on in. Mr. Monkey says he's first. The Evil Badger, Jeff Olson, is in the house. Cloak and Dagger. Mr. James Foster, Randy Taylor. Wild Oot is in the house. Mona Vision. Mr. Buckeye K. Luis Carlos Diaz. Mr. Aztec. Look out for the Aztecs. Ryan Martin. Robert Moffett. J-Rod. Mr. Ted, Mr. Alani, Grateful Trojan, USC, thanks for all coming in. I know there's a lot more people piling in. Eric Collins, Eric Collins, thanks for coming on in. Bob Husley. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We don't have much to talk about. As you can see in our title screen for today, 20% linear? 20% linear? Could that be? Could that be? Well, first of all, we're going to do a PATC Chalk Talk to start the show. We're going to go through 365 Sports. They put out some interesting information. We can confirm a lot of it here at Peek Around the Corner. The great Craig Smoke, David Smoke, and Paul Catalina. Incredible reporting. Some incredible reporting being done by 365 Sikkim. The great Brian Etheridge and Mr. Bradshaw. Some great reporting going on all over the place. We can confirm we've been getting. Remember, we talked about this April 28th, the May 17th date. It's April 28th today, and it's going to what we thought it was a couple weeks ago. Decisions are going to have to be made. These Pac-12 schools want to stay together, period. End of story. We all know the reasons why. We've been going over it and over it and over it. But they also want them to take care of the front porch of the universities. Their front porch, the athletic department, that also gives them the chance to get the best students, the students they want to go to their school. They don't want these great, big, large research universities of the Pacific Coast do not want to become an Ivy League school where they have great research, but their front porch of the athletic school is diminished. Yeah, it's great, but of course they're not playing at the highest level. They're not giving the university the greatest exposure. They don't want to become that. So it is important what their athletic department looks like, what it can do for its student athletes, so what it can do for its students. People are missing that component in the story, but it is a real component. That's why there's so much frustrations behind the scene. If the athletic department, if the TV deal, the media deal, the exposure didn't mean anything at all to these large research institutions in the Pac-12, if it meant nothing, then there'd be no struggle. There'd be no concern. There'd be no anger. There'd be none of that. But there is. And if you don't think that there is, I can't help you anymore. I really can't. I really can't. So, we're going to be talking about the 365 report. Public. They put it out there. We're going to be going through that. Bullet points. But I would invite you to go to 365 Sports, watch that whole broadcast of yesterday. And we're also going to be talking about what the Arizona State money purchase is saying. And a lot of dots are connected. A lot of dots are connected. And we're going to connect them. That decisions are going to be made here pretty soon. That's what we strongly believe here at Peek Around the Corner. And no, it's not just from one corner of the world that we're getting this information. There's a lot at stake here. San Diego State. There's a lot of ripple effect that's going to happen regardless of the decision. If the Pac-12 school takes the deal that we're about to talk about, or a deal similar to what is in front of them, it's going to be fascinating to watch for the next 5 years. I don't think it's a deal that they can expand with. And if they can't expand, if they can't grab it in 11th and 12th school, then what does that mean for San Diego State in the Big 12? So the ripple effects are enormous, whatever which way this goes. And however this goes, there's not going to be a 100% satisfaction. We've been talking about how Arizona State and Arizona and Colorado have been trying to align themselves, trying to make sure that there's a pathway, that they have institutional support. If they decide to do realignment and go to the Big 12, that they have the support backing them. Either decision they make, it's not going to be 100% support. Be staying or going. And I can tell you this, and I was going to wait till we get done with all of it. I'll circle back to it. But the boosters are already talking. They're already making their voices known about this potential media deal. And you can guess what they're saying. Okay, let's get to it. Then we're going to talk about Casey Thompson. He just entered the transfer portal. The starter of Nebraska Cornhuskers last year. Tyler Buckner going to Alabama. So much stuff going on in college football. We put two episodes out yesterday talking about everything that is going on. Holy smokes. The drama continues to build. Going into 2023 season. So the 365 report was not hypothetical. No, it wasn't hypothetical. Pac-12 is trying to get a deal, and it's starting to take form around what 365 said. We're going to talk about it right now. Let me set this up. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get to it. Okay, here we go. PATC Chalk Talk, 365 Sports, Pac-12 media deal. We're going through the bullet points of what they discussed yesterday. Now, again, this is Craig Smoke, David Smoke, Paul Catalina, 365 Sports. You can watch the whole thing on their YouTube channel. This is the information that they have received, and they reported it out there, so I feel that we can follow up and do bullet points and drill down on what they said. We're going to fill in some of the gaps. We're going to give you Arizona State's money perch perspective, excuse me, on this information. But right now, this is where it's trending. This is where it's going. This is where it's flowing. This is perhaps what's going to happen in regards to the Pac-12 media deal. Apple TV receives 100% of Pac-12 content. All of it. Apple TV will then sublicense 13 games to ESPN for a late Saturday night time slot. So ESPN will grab 13 of those football games. Now, our Arizona, this is, again, 365 Sports, reporting this yesterday. Arizona State, our Arizona State money perch guy, believes that number could be a couple games more than 13. That's what they're looking at. That's from what he has been told. Again, I'm not saying 365 Sports information is correct, incorrect, or correct. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just giving you the bullet points of 365 Sports. And then I'm just telling you what the Arizona State guy is saying. There's a little bit of difference, but there's enough there to where I think we can see where the trend, where it's flowing to, okay? At this moment. Again, we think, look, you know what, I'll get into it later, but there is some, we at Peek Around the Corner don't believe at all that this thing is going into late June. There is pressure points being applied to the Pac-12. But we'll get into it. Anyways, number one, Apple TV receives 100% of Pac-12 content. Number 2, Apple TV will sublicense 13 games to ESPN for a late Saturday night time slot. Number 3, media deal will consist of around 80% Apple streaming versus 20% linear. Number 4, Apple gets access to PAC-12 network, the production arm, the infrastructure, without having to buy it outright from the PAC-12 conference. So Apple gets to use the PAC-12 network, and they don't have to buy it. Now, I don't know anything about, does Apple, would they pay extra money? I have no idea. But that's the information coming from 365 Sports from yesterday. Number 5, total media money payout per school for each Pac-12 school will not reach Big 12 media money payout per school under this media deal. I do not know what the money payout is going to be under this deal that we're going to talk about today, but from the Arizona State guy, he doesn't believe any of these deals will get much above $25 million per school. What he's been told. Now, does this get to $28 million, $29 million because it's more heavy streaming? Possibly, but we do not know. Peek Around the Corner does not have that information. Number 6, 20% linear doesn't meet the threshold Arizona President Robbins laid out weeks ago in multiple different interviews. Now that's pretty obvious. President Robbins of Arizona has stated over and over again that it's going to be, one time he said it's got to be at least 50-50 with linear and streaming. Then the next time he talked about it, he says can't be a heavily streaming deal for this to work for Arizona. And of course, that's what this is. It's heavy streaming. And of course, the Arizona State Money Perch guy has told us that Arizona State is not in favor of a heavy streaming deal either. He talked about the demographics. This was a few letters ago. I don't know, probably a couple months ago from now. So Arizona State will not be in favor of this. 365 Sports went on to say California, Stanford, Oregon State, Washington State, and Utah are probable yeses votes on this type of media deal, on this media deal that is forming. Oregon and Washington would lose all linear exposure during Saturday of college football before the late night window. Because these 13 games, according to 365 Sports, would be on Saturday night, one game a week. So there wouldn't be any linear going on anywhere else. Not on a Friday night, not on a Thursday night, not during Saturday, early afternoon, late afternoon, Saturday night, late window. Arizona State, Arizona, Colorado. The question is, how many of those 13 linear games would each of these schools receive in a year? You got Oregon, Washington. Oregon's going to be there 3 or 4 or 5 times. Washington a few times. Utah. There is no ESPN2 in this deal, obviously. There is no FS1 in this deal. There's no, of course, Fox. It's all ESPN putting their game wherever they put it on, but it's one in their family of networks, but it's just one game a week. Proposal limiting number of appearances per school was shot down by ESPN in Oregon, according to 365 Sports. So within the conference, schools being worried that they have no pathway to no linear games for football wanted a limited number of appearances, and of course that was shot down by ESPN, and of course Oregon's not in favor of it. ESPN does not intend to be hamstrung on their Pac-12 Saturday night game selection. So this is a highly potential sticking point to this type of deal, with Apple TV having all of the content but agreeing to sub-license out 13 games to ESPN. ESPN is going to want to be able to choose all 13 games. Now, do you think Apple TV would be okay with that? I mean, they're trying to gain subscribers out of this deal. Why would they give all their most valuable content to ESPN? But that's where we are in this report, 365 Sports. It's a sticking point. I don't have the answer for you here today on what that would look like. Arizona schools need more linear in the deal. Now, that wasn't directly from 365 Sports, but I just wanted to put 12 and 13 in there. Arizona schools need more linear in the deal. Arizona State Money Perch, it's out there for anyone to see. He's been giving us great information, a little bit ahead of the curve. Arizona schools, this isn't going to work for them. They're not, for whatever reason, I don't know the state of Arizona demographics, whatever reason, they're against this heavy streaming deal. And the boosters, cloak and dagger, that's going on right now. I'm going to be careful here, but there are motivations for leaking. There's motivations for, I'm not saying 365 Sports has anything to do. They're putting out great information. But I'm talking about people who are leaking information. There are boosters that don't want this deal. And they're making it known that they don't want this deal to happen. Arizona State Money Perch, the people who he talks to, do not want this deal to go down. Now, some structure, some form of this deal, will it happen? Apple TV having most of the content, sub-licensing some to ESPN. Will this happen? Okay. But you're going to have issues if this one goes down. You're not going to get 100% support behind this. And you probably won't with any deal. You're not going to get 100% support if Arizona and Arizona State decide to move to the Big 12. But keep in mind on something. Keep in mind. Basketball. Big 12 has a deal with Fox Sports, and ESPN. But in their media package, ESPN is going to take most of the better football games of the Big 12. And Fox Sports is going to run with that incredible basketball conference. So when you're Arizona, what are you looking at here? What are you looking at for your basketball content? What? I mean, Apple TV and versus Fox with a little bit of ESPN when you're Arizona? Again, if somehow George Kliavkoff threads the needle and get all 10 Pac-12 presidents to sign on in this type of deal, maybe not this exact deal, this type of deal. First of all, kudos to him for threading the needle to get it done. But man, it's just going to be fascinating to watch how this all happens. I mean, the Big Ten Conference has 8 football games on Peacock this year. It looks like they're going to be on Friday night. The great experience to see what kind of viewership that's going to, how well is it going to perform? I don't know. Big Ten doesn't know. It's a little bit of a gamble. Schools are going to be playing Friday nights on Peacock streaming. Now, Pac-12 is going to be 80% streaming on Apple TV. That's a massive gamble. Maybe a little less for Oregon because they're going to be playing a good, 4 or 5 games on that one ESPN primetime slot linear. Washington's going to get a few of those. I mean, what a gamble. It'll be fascinating to watch if they actually get these presidents to sign. The Arizona State money perch, he believes that number 13, none of this is set in stone. 365 Sports is not saying it's set in stone. That is what's forming right now. That's what's percolating. That type of deal. And again, no one really knows. I don't think so. And if someone does know, I apologize for misinterpreting. I don't think anyone truly knows who calls the shots for those 13 or 14 or 15 or 16 ESPN games and who gets to decide. I mean, if ESPN's going to pay some money on it, you'd think they would you'd think they'd be able to have some control. But then again, why would Apple TV give away all the best content? They're trying to gain subscribers. Also, I feel I don't have the handcuffs anymore. I'm going to go out. It's been out there. I've hem and hawed over it because I don't like to release information that's given to me early on. I like to be, well, first of all, I protect all my sources at all costs. Second of all, I do not want to become the story anymore like it was during the USC stuff during last year. I'm willing to stand down on stories now. I will give you the peek around the corner, but I don't want to get too far out in front of my skis. But let's just say this. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think the peoples who've told me are going to be okay with me saying this because, quite frankly, we have a new report here. So the old report is, it has cobwebs on it. But the reason why I've been saying for so long that there's so much consternation and worriness and behind the scenes is because ESPN the offers that they gave to the Pac-12 are indications that they don't want the Pac-12 to exist anymore. They don't want that one region conference to exist anymore. It isn't great schools, great research universities, engines of the Pacific Coast, engines of this country. All that and that's been true for decades. But there's another side of the story, and that is the networks willing to provide the resources to keep the Pacific Athletic Coast Conference alive. And for me, the answer right now has been no. And it's been no. ESPN, $90 million a year for 16 to 18 Pac-12 games. That's tier 1, the top games. That was the offer. $90 million. That's been known by some for quite a while. $90 million. So what does that mean? That means that, let's just throw in another linear network. Let's just pretend that it was Fox or put another name to it. throws out another $50 million for another 20 games. That's $140 million. Now you need streaming to take what? All the rest of the content and add another 140, another 120 million to keep the conference afloat. The offers for the offers for the top content for the Pac-12 when it comes to potential linear media partners was so low that of course there's been all this worry and panic behind the scenes. I don't know what I can. I don't know. Let me point to something out here. Let me try to find that comment again. Boy, oh boy, how did I lose it? Okay, Random Tease, thanks for coming in. You say you're already the story, bud, you and Baltimore. No, we're not. We're not the story. We're not the story. Baltimore, very smart guy who talks about why the Pac-12 schools want to stay together. Large research universities that want to stay together, motivated to stay together. We all know that. We know it. There's not a person who doesn't know that the Pac-12 schools want to stay together. There's not a person who doesn't know why the Pac-12 schools want to stay together. Of course, these large research institutions want to stay together. So that's not the story. The story is, in this time frame, in this new college football, new college sports that we're going through. My gosh, UCLA and USC just left the Pac-12. They just left the Pac-12. In this new time period, do the networks find value in the Pac-12 to where it can exist anymore? That's the story. When the Pac-12 balked on the deal in the exclusive window with Fox and ESPN, and Big 12 moved up and grabbed the deal, can Pac-12 schools find a deal that gives them enough exposure for their athletic departments? That's the story. That's always been the story. There's heavy incentive for the Pac-12 schools to stay together, but can they find a way? Because these Pac-12 schools do not want to let their athletic departments decay and go away, not be able to compete at the highest level. They don't want that either. Of course they don't. And all the reports from these reporters, great reporters out there, saying that that some Pac-12 schools have been talking with the Big 12 have been accurate. No, not part of Endeavor plan, not part of an Endeavor plot. So no, Baltimore is not part of the story because he's not telling us anything we don't already know. That's one scope of the story. It's much bigger than that. It's much bigger than charts. It's much bigger than knowing that the Pac-12 schools are the biggest research schools out there in the West, and that the Big 10 schools are the biggest research schools out in the Midwest, and now some in the Pacific Coast and a few of them in the East Coast. We all know that already. I got to tell you something. Times do change. There's other variables in play. The networks are speaking up with their offers. Okay, I'm going to get to your comments. I'm gonna get to your phone calls. There's lots more we can go through. But let's just go to your comments, because we got a lot of good comments. I know we're gonna get a lot of great phone calls. Let's get to it. I can't wait for the 2024 schedule to drop. Grateful Trojans, I am with you 100%. I like the way Greg says hand pick coffee beans. Get your coffee. Your Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. Woo! CFB Plus. I have a question about the TV deal. Apple Plus has to know that a deal is heavy streaming. Teams may leave. Why would Apple Plus pursue the deal to put effort into it? Because they don't know 100%. They don't know 100% that Arizona would take a Big 12 offer. Arizona State would take a Big 12 offer. Apple TV is right there in the Pacific Coast. They know these Pac-12 university presidents want to stay together. So I think they're trying to get a deal. Apple TV is trying to get a deal that gets them into the college football space, college sports space, and see what happens. See if they can grow it. See if they can grow their subscribers. Now, obviously, Apple TV knows that these Pac-12 presidents want some linear, obviously. That's why it looks like they're willing to deal with ESPN. But there's a limit to that, right? 13 games or 14 games or 15 games. Michael Crow's Dagger. I will say this to Mazda and everybody else. Kevin Lee, I saw the 365 video yesterday. Not clear where they got the story. If true, a disaster. I can't tell you where they got the story. I can tell you that Arizona State purchase story lines up almost perfectly with wherever they're getting their information from. It's the type of deal that Arizona State has not wanted from the get-go. Talking about bad cop, good cop. I talked about that earlier in this episode, this live show. Arizona State has been pressing the bet this whole time. Right? It's like a bunch of guys around the table playing five-card stud. You got a good hand, a five-card draw, let's say. You got a good hand. Some people want to slow play it. Some people want to press the action. Some people want to get the hand over with. Arizona's sitting there playing good cop, saying, look, we're fine. Just, we'll wait it out a little bit longer. Da-da-da. They got a spot ready for them on a different table if this goes pear-shaped on them. Arizona State, who's playing a hand next to Arizona, they want to get resolution on this thing. They're not impressed with the leadership. They want Pac-12 leadership. They want to get a deal done soon. If not, yeah, they might have a spot over the table here, but they're not as sure as the guy next to them. They want to get something done. And they've been pushing on this all the way since January. They're not happy with California. They're not happy with anything that's going on. That's Arizona State's position. Take it however you want it. And then you got San Diego State sitting there. They want some resolution on this. They don't want this to go on much longer. If it goes past June 30th, they have to, and if they get an offer after June 30th, Then they have to spend more money to get out of the Mountain West Conference. This can't go on forever with San Diego State. Yormark's interested in them. What should they do? What should they do? You know, the bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. So the fact that Apple Plus keeps pursuing a deal means there's a legitimate chance the Pac-12 might survive? Yeah, there's a legitimate chance the Pac-12 might survive. Of course there is. The schools want to stay together. Now, since February 24th at Peek Around the Corner, we have made it the Pac-12 getting poached once again as the slight favorite. Since all the way back to February 24th. Because of all these issues of the Pac-12 getting the deal that would satisfy all the 10 presidents. It looked bad then. It looks bad now. But of course there's a legitimate chance that the Pac-12 survives. The people, we've talked about it, Peek Around the Corner. I think we did a show. It doesn't matter when we did it. But for those who have been saying that this is a done deal, the deal will get done, we disagree. For those who said, for sure, the schools have already got an invitation, they're already accepted, they're already on their way, some of these big Pac-12 schools to the Big Ten, we said that's not true either. The two extremes were never true in this case. The Pac-12 is sitting on the knife's edge, and it continues to sit on the knife's edge today. It looks like, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like there's going to be a heavy streaming component to this deal. That doesn't meet the bar that Arizona President Robbins set. Does he go back on his word? Did he say, well, this is the best we could do, and we decided to stay with our brothers and sisters in the Pac-12? He could say that, absolutely. Or because he has said that in the public, because he put the benchmarks out there carefully and repeated it in more than one interview, now he can say, look, this is the reason why we're leaving. A, B, and C. He's not going to have 100 support behind him if they decide to leave to the Pac-12, to the Big 12. But at least he can say, I said it before, I'll say it again. This does not measure up to the standards that we expect at the University of Arizona. Renee Roca, if the deal is $22 million a school, can the PAC even expand? So, if the deal is truly forming around what 365 Sports is saying, and with what Arizona State guy, our Money Perch, is saying, how do they expand? How do they expand without more linear? I don't think they can. I mean, how could you do that? You add 2 more schools, an 11th and 12th school, and you still only have 13 linear games a year? Cutting down the chances for a Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona to be on a linear TV at like a home game, a linear. I don't know. I don't know how you expand with that type of deal. There's some disagreement within the chat room, and I think we'll get to the phone calls here shortly, and people can discuss it. Mike Shields, if there is no pathway for Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten, then there's a real possibility those 2 schools could partner with Arizona State Colorado, Arizona, San Diego State, and a move to the Big 12. And there are other people in the chat saying, like Mona Vision, Oregon and Washington would never join the Big 12. It would be a signal they have completely given up on ever joining the Big 10. You can't upgrade by downgrading. Interesting comments on both sides of that coin. %20 linear, 80% streaming. Could the Pac-12 survive 5 years of that type of deal? Maybe if there would be on the cutting edge. Maybe they would be on the cutting edge. Maybe in a couple years from now, it'd be great, fantastic deal for the Pac-12, even though they're only getting paid $25, $26, $27 million per school. But people getting used to going streaming, people getting used to putting on Apple TV on a Saturday night. But man, what a gamble. What a huge gamble. Think about it. 80% streaming. All those basketball games on Apple TV, most of those games, I don't know. I mean, I see a lot of people cutting down FS1 and ESPN2 and even ESPNU and FS2. I flip on those channels on a Saturday. They get some casual viewers to go on those channels. Apple TV, it's going to take me a while. It's going to take me a long time to be flipping on Apple TV. It's a huge gamble. A fascinating story, however which way this goes. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner, because we continue to follow this dramatic story, highly impactful story. The ripple effects are large. The reason why the Big 12 are targeting those four corner schools, the reason why Yormark is doing that, because he wants to elevate the value of his conference by elevating the value of his content that he can provide his media partners. That's why Yormark is doing it. To try to get into that fourth time window a few times a year, to elevate his conference, to make sure his conference is solidified and being there for 2026 great gold rush, to make sure they're in the room to decide what the future looks like. If Big 12 can't get any four corner schools, they're going to be fine. They're going to be a Power 5 conference. But they're not going to be able to elevate the value. This is their shot. And Yormark is pushing the envelope. He's putting his chips in the middle of the table. He has spoken with Fox and ESPN greatly about this. Some of those Pac-12 schools have had heavy discussions with Brett Yormark. No question about it. And for those Pac-12 schools that have an option, they got to be looking at it. What are we going to look like 5 years from now if we do this heavy streaming deal? It's not just about 2024. It's about 2025, 2026. Are we going to get left farther and farther behind? How are we going to recruit under this heavy streaming Apple TV deal? What will Apple TV do for us? Will they market us? Look at the first round draft picks of the NFL this year. I don't know the numbers before in front of me, but Pac-12 was at the bottom. I think there was like 3 of them. Does that get worse as the years go on? And then, of course, you got Oregon and Washington. They keep swinging away for the Big Ten. And they're going to keep doing so. Why wouldn't they? Okay, let's get to your phone calls. I will keep going to your comments. Phone line is open, 763-260-1333. Give me your comments on this potential media deal, the Pac-12. It looks like it's forming around an Apple TV, ESPN.
Call from
Ryan Martin.
Ryan Martin, the floor is yours, sir. Thanks for calling.
Good morning, sir. How you doing today?
Doing okay. A lot of breaking news. Casey Thompson.
A lot of breaking news.
Casey Thompson in the transfer portal. So Nebraska's going with Jeff Sims. I'm not a Jeff Sims fan, but that's fantastic because my Golden Gophers play the Cornhuskers August 31st to open the season. So, yeah, go ahead though.
So, there is smoke around what the 365 guys are putting out there because they couched it as a hypothetical, but there are sources out there who are saying exactly what they've been talking about. This is not them just talking hypothetically here. There is real smoke to this deal.
Yeah, there's real smoke. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
One of the other interesting things that I've seen from sources adjacent to them is that as it stands, if the PAC stands as it currently does with this deal, there's absolutely no room for any additions. It's 10. That's it.
It wouldn't make any sense. Yep.
SDSU, SMU, they are SOL. There's no room to expand in this deal.
Yeah.
The big thing that I think a lot of people might be misunderstanding is because the question's been asked is like, why is Apple continuing to pursue this deal if they know it's not necessarily acceptable to several of the schools within the PAC. They know that there is a real risk here of people leaving. Their number one goal is not the PAC as it stands. They don't care who ends up taking this little slate of games that they're throwing out there. It's about getting access to the Pac-12 network infrastructure. That has been both Apple and Amazon's MO from the beginning with this. Amazon's kind of gotten shut out, it sounds like. And Apple is going to reap the benefits of getting access to that. They don't care if it's Oregon, Washington, whatever. It actually makes it a little bit easier because that's the other problem. The conference is demanding a streaming or a linear partner to go with it because they need that linear exposure, right?
Yeah.
If all of the people who are demanding a linear exposure go away and all you have are teams left who are like, they don't have the strength to demand that additional linear exposure, or ESPN is no longer interested in that package, that means now Apple has a package of teams that can entirely drive subscribership to their streaming platform. That they don't care. Right now, the deal is they're having to balance the deal with multiple partners. If people leave, it becomes a lot simpler for them to get everything that they want at the price point they want. So they may be playing ball because ultimately they want access to that network infrastructure. That's what they want.
Yep.
But the deal gets a lot simpler and a lot better for them if people do leave. The other flip side of this, and people have been talking numbers, whatever, I think, and there's been some other smoke to this as well, I think that they're going to give Kliavkov a deal that is an on-paper win. It's a deal that's like, hey, we got this deal that's worth $35 million per school, or whatever number that beats out the Big 12. Somewhere in there, it's going to be a little bit higher than the Big 12, but it doesn't matter. And then they're going to say, it's a win. That's how much we got. And then everybody's going to be able to look at the fine print and say, oh, wait, there's a subscribership metric here that you have to meet every year in order to get that full value. And without it, it's something like what we thought, like a $22 million deal or whatever. There's going to be something here that gives them a PR win. That is what I expected, but it's also going to be a relatively unrealistic goal for them to achieve. They get to say they made that, but the value's not going to be there.
Yeah, I haven't been able to confirm this this subscription level where there's going to be different payouts from Apple TV to the PAC-12 based upon how many added subscriptions they have. I wouldn't doubt that was part of the deal, but we have not been able to confirm it at Peek Around the Corner.
No. So the other thing, and there are more and more rumblings of this too, that schools are starting to finalize, like what is scheduling going to look like? Where is this going to go? Like how can we avoid, playing away at West Virginia and UCF or Cincinnati in back-to-back weeks? Can we avoid playing them away altogether in a single season? Can we do this? Can we visit Texas? Can we visit Florida in a season? Can we do this? Can we do that? Like, schools are starting to talk. They're starting to finalize things and make sure they have I's dotted, T's crossed, ready to go.
Yeah.
It's coming down to the wire, and
we've just entered into the hot bubble, April 28th, and it's bubbling. So it's decision time. This thing cannot go to late June. So.
And the last thing I'll leave on, and I've kind of been harping on this in a couple different places. Washington is in play. There's just no other way about it. Washington doesn't like the streaming deal because they know they're behind Oregon in priority. They know if ESPN gets its way, all 13 of Oregon's games are going to be the ones that they pick from the Pac-12 week after week. They may get the 3 non-con games off, and that might be what they get picked. But it's going to be very heavily picked Oregon. So schools are pushing for limits on, again, this is all part of other sources and smoke that's out there. But schools are pushing for appearance minimums, maximums, and it's all conflicting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I disagree. I disagree with our friend Moen about the fact that the Big 12 is a downgrade. With where everything is, the Big 12 is very much an upgrade from where the PAC is at the moment. You can't. You have to look at it from the perspective of a school that very well could end up with fewer linear games than they ever saw before. And now, if they're trying to maintain their status and their brand, where are they going to end up going? What's going to happen? And ultimately, there's a level of balance and risk here. Which is the bigger risk? That's the calculation that they have to make. Is the bigger risk staying with a conference that has a ton less money, a lot less exposure, even less exposure than you had before on linear platforms, or go with a conference that has a solid media deal, no weird performance metrics, no nothing like that, but you marginally decrease your ability to move out of that conference in the future if something does come calling. I think, realistically, that it's more about the individual brand than the brand by association. Nobody's going to give a crap that you're a Big 12 school. They're going to give a crap that you're the University of Washington or the University of Oregon or Oklahoma State University or Texas Tech University, whomever, Kansas, whatever. They're going to pick you up because you are this good individual brand. And you will improve the brand of the Big Ten that way because you improve the brand of the conference that you're currently in. So it's not a Big 12 school. They're Washington. That's all I have to say today.
Got it.
And I will hop off and let somebody else come on.
Thank you so much.
I'm ready for this to be over.
Yes, we all are. Thank you so much. Great call. Okay, come.
Call from
Monavision.
Monavision, can you just give me a moment?
Sure.
Give me a moment. But thanks for calling, sir. The floor will be yours in a second. Couple things. Monavision is going to talk about his take probably on the Oregon and Washington thing. So I'll go into that with Monavision. The other thing is, we talk about Oregon. I have been saying this. I don't know why I always seem to be arguing for Oregon's value because so much out there they get trashed a little bit. But we've been talking about peek around the corner. You know, Fox Sports, for example, they understand the value of Oregon. ESPN, they understand the value of Oregon. These university presidents understand the value of Oregon. Fox Sports, if that expansion door in the Big Ten cracks a little bit more open with the new commissioner, if things still aren't going well with the Pac-12, Fox Sports would have no problem adding Oregon to the Big Ten. ESPN has no problem putting Oregon in as much as they possibly can if this deal is something that would eventually works out. I'm just saying, Oregon's value, for whatever reason, I know they're a small research university, but when it comes to the media companies, Oregon is an attraction to them. They are a brand multiplier. Now, another thing I want to just point out is, as we talk about this deal, I don't think this is the only deal that's probably out there being discussed. I think this is probably something that's going on, definitely something that's going on. But when people talk about Amazon being out, I don't think Amazon's out. When people talk about possibly some other linear networks being cobbled together with an Amazon, I don't think that's necessarily out. I think there's more than one thing going on here in the Pac-12. But this deal here, Apple TV, getting ESPN possibly as there's 13 games, sub-licensing, that is something that has some juice to it. People are talking about it, has some steam to it. But I don't think that's the only thing that's being talked about. Arizona State guy doesn't believe that's the only thing being talked about. But we're talking about it because 365 reported it. We're talking about it because Arizona State says there's steam to it. He doesn't know about the 13 games. So, but heavy streaming, if that's what's going to happen here, woo, man, that's a gamble. Monavision, go ahead. The floor is yours, sir.
All right, Greg. Well, I agree with you. I also, if you recall, pointed out that I thought the Pac-12 was going to go to a majority streaming deal.
Yeah.
Or that was going to be the best deal offered. So I wasn't shocked there to hear 80-20. Outside of that, I want to point out, I'm not trying to insult the Big 12 as a conference or its teams by saying it would devalue Oregon and Washington to go there. The Oregon and Washington brands are extremely strong brands. Those two brands are probably stronger than 80% of the Big 12. I don't see them going to the Big 12 unless they've given up all attempts to get to the Big 10. Because at the end of the media deal for the Big 10, Oregon and Washington are going to be viewed as Big 12 schools. And at that point, the Big 10 might take more East Coast schools and just leave USC and UCLA on an island. I just don't understand how Oregon and Washington could downgrade to the Big 12 for 4 or 5 years to upgrade to the Big 10. I think the far more likely scenario, and I saw W. Scott Geyer mentioned it in the chat, is that the Big 10 is simply waiting for the Four Corners or some combination of that to leave. Once those leave, they can substantially lowball Oregon, Washington, California. More importantly, the presidents can pretend to have a conscience that they didn't kill the Pac-12, that they are, in fact, saving the Pac-12 by throwing them a life preserver after the collapse. But again, I just want to make it clear, I'm not trying to insult the Big 12 conference. I'm really not. It's just I don't think Oregon and Washington are keen to the idea of jumping there. I think they would much rather, even though it would be majority streaming, stay in a PAC conference with Cal and Stanford, and then in 5 to 7 years get that call from the Big. But ultimately, as I've mentioned before, I don't think that's going to happen. I still bet on the PAC collapsing. I still bet on Oregon and Washington accepting the deal to start in the Big 10 in 2024 for a substantially less amount than every other conference member. And I do see the Big 10 adding a media partner for a Friday night game. This season, you're seeing Peacock with the Friday night games. Next season, it could be Amazon or ESPN.
Yeah.
Probably Amazon, I think, would be the likely partner for Oregon and Washington. If they could sign Oregon and Washington for $35 million, get a deal from Amazon for $100 million, that gets the schools that are worried a little extra in their pocket to bring Oregon, to vote Oregon and Washington into the Big Ten Conference.
I will say this. We at Peek Around the Corner, we keep asking around, right? I mean, that's what we do. And Washington is a very interesting, we have no idea what President Kase is thinking. But we do know there is one board member, and people could probably figure it out. If they, in fact, in another live show, it was like 4 or 5 live shows ago, we had Rebecca on the line, and I was trying to ask her about, does she know anybody on the board, but she didn't really know anybody. But there is one board member, a powerful person on the board, who absolutely no way and has expressed it to people that we've talked with. And this is as far as I'm going to go with this story, because there's really not much more there. We're trying to get more of it. But there's somebody in the Washington's board of regents does not want the Washington to go to the Big 12. And it's a pretty powerful person. Again, you probably can figure out who that is if you did any investigation on the board. So it'd be very difficult, I think, for President Kase to get the ability, if that was something she thought about, to move Washington into the Big 12. Just putting that out there.
Right, and I like I said, again, it's not anything where I'm like, the Big 12's the worst conference in football. It's just a simple, I think it would devalue the brand of Washington and Oregon a little too much. And I just would add, to go along with that, the Big 10 hired a commissioner that comes from digital rights distribution and television.
Yeah.
7 years out from their next media deal.
Yeah.
You don't do that unless you plan on doing some negotiation.
I think so. We'll see. We'll see what he says today. I doubt if he says anything, but
yeah, you're going to see boilerplate. I'm so happy to be here, and this is the best conference ever. But I will just end my call with no future big expansion without Oregon and Washington getting lowballed. and then picking up Notre Dame and Cal.
Okay, all right. You've changed that over the period of time, but all right. Thanks,
all right,
thanks,
Greg,
man.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for the phone call, Mona Vision. Jonathan Weaver, could ESPN get the Big Ten fourth window with Oregon and Washington? Yeah, they could. Why not? Why not? The problem is that would cost ESPN more money than if they decided to do a deal with the Big 12 to help them get that fourth time window, or do a deal with the Pac-12. That's going to cost them more money to do it that way. But thank you so much, Jonathan Weaver, for your donation.
Call from
Western Civic.
Western Civic is on the line. The floor is yours. What do you think about this Pac-12 media deal, heavy streaming? It's starting to form, possibly, maybe.
Well, look, I'll address this quickly. I really want to talk about something else that's news. Let me just...
You go ahead. You talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I really want to talk about what I talked about last time. I want to talk about the playoffs.
Yes.
But let's get this other stuff out of the way. I mean, come on, guys. Greg, you're killing me with all 365 Sports is like the absolute last place anyone should go for Pac-12 information, right? I mean, come on. But anyway,
I would 100% disagree with you on that.
I know, but look how many times they've been wrong.
No,
how many times
because
this four corners stuff is just
because
the Pac. You have an AD come out and says, quote, absolutely no truth. You have a chancellor come out and say, we're going to get the third best deal, and mentions Kansas by name that no one in the Big 12 will even mention. Notice that when Kurtz did his video on the USA Today article, he didn't even mention that. He skipped over that the Kansas was mentioned. I mean, it's denial over there. It's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. We'll see what happens when it happens. We need to listen to Petiti.
Yes.
And it's fine. I mean, listening to 365 Sports about, the Pac-12 is like trying to get, the Russian take on the Ukraine war from the CIA. I mean, it's not going to work.
Come on.
Anyway,
all right, go ahead.
We'll see what happens. But thank you, Greg, because I think, if you'll notice, they're really working on the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
And I really want to beg your indulgence on this, because I want people to really digest this. This is stuff that's going on right now, and it's going to have a lot of importance. And I want to go back. Look, I was in politics before. We have this thing, stay on message.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you want to get this part digested. And why, college football is not the NFL, why we love it, all of those things. Okay, now, I don't know if anyone's here remember when I called last time, we talked a little bit about the playoff structure, with annual playoff flexibility being the key. And I want to go through this a little bit and just look at the stages of this. I'll try and be as concise and quick as I can, but let's digest this. What they're putting together now with the 12 teams, this is not, I don't think this is the future model they anticipate. I was a little disappointed in everything that I've been able to read about it. It didn't mention anything about flexibility. The first time we heard that concept, it came with the list of schools that were in the 3 mega conferences that we got back in August, and I haven't had anything near that level of intelligence since then. So let's go back to the basis. The playoff flexibility system that I talked about last time and that I'm going to get into now anticipates the development of 3 major conferences, okay? If you guys haven't digested where we think that's going, ultimately, let's just get into that quickly. Essentially, assuming 2 major conferences survive, it would be the Big and the SEC. We see them going to 25 schools apiece. And then we see a third conference developing, which would probably be the Big 12, which would be largely, if not exclusively, non-AAU schools. And we'll have a lot of schools. And we'll also have 25 schools that are eligible for the playoffs moving forward. The rest, there'll have to be some sort of relegation system within that third conference. Okay? We can't allow college football to break off into just, a top 30 or something like that. That's not college football. If you're going to have a national championship, it's got to be a national championship. I mean, remember when Marshall was an upstart? Remember when, all these nobody schools, remember when Boise State started out? I mean, these people got to have a shot. And that's part of what this system anticipates. So and Greg, feel free to stop me if you have any questions about where I'm going, but it takes a minute, so I want to get right to where we're going here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have three large conferences. So you basically start the season with 75 teams that are eligible for the playoffs, plus 3 independents. And I need to address this quickly. The 3 independents with loose affiliations to these schools. This also maintains some of our tradition, maintains some of the nuance, and also puts these 3 particular schools in an appropriate place. Notre Dame is a very unique brand. Independence is just part of their identity, and they have a special sort of fan base. West Virginia does not have that fan base, but I think they should be protected. They're not quite an SEC school. They're not. They're making do here in the Big 12. They're not a big school. They're sort of their own thing. If you look at West Virginia, and let me take a step back for a second.
Yeah, well, as you take a step back,
not much.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say the big is, if you look at how this breaks out, the SEC, you got to remember the billionaires are trying to start a civil war. So any references to civil war in this day and age is good. Also, they are trying to get streaming. Okay, they want streaming for everything in the world. The ruling class wants everything you watch and see to be connected to you moving forward. So streaming is the billionaires' model moving forward. I don't like it, but so that's part of what's going on. So you'll have the SEC, which are all the slave states, and you'll have the big, if you'll notice, is in all the non-slave states. It's not North and South. It's not Mason-Dixon. It's literally slave state and non-slave state. And West Virginia is so unique. It's unique historically, it's unique culturally, and it's unique geographically. It doesn't have the fan base of a Notre Dame or a BYU, but they have this. Where do they fit? And we need to acknowledge that. I mean, and protect. As I like to call them, the Switzerland of college football. They don't really belong quite anywhere. And what they ought to have is, I think, they will have a loose affiliation.
Okay, let me cut in for a second.
Sure.
So you got 3 conferences of 25 teams. You've got three independents. So where are you going with this? Because I got a whole bunch of phone calls lined up.
Okay, I'm going to try and get there, but okay, all right. So West Virginia, loose affiliation with the SEC, BYU, loose affiliation with the third 25, and Notre Dame, loose affiliation with the big. Okay.
Got it.
Now let's get to the playoffs. Okay, this is the important part. We have this 12-team thing that they're doing now, and they're kind of going in, and they're busting up some of the traditions with this. I don't like it, what they're doing. If you look at, okay, so let me also say this. The big championship game is the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. The Big 12 third 25 championship game is the Cotton Bowl on New Year's Day. The SEC championship game is the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day, or somewhere around there, right? Okay, and so in the first 2 weeks of December, each of those conferences will have 2 weeks to determine 2 teams that they're going to send to their championship game. So that's your first level of flexibility.
Okay, that's not going to happen.
Well, we don't know that.
Yeah,
right?
it's not going to happen.
At all.
It's not going to happen.
This is in the future this is in the future. Well, I'll tell you what's not going to happen.
I got to get to the next point. Okay, I got to
talk about this. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
No, listen, I want to get it out.
SEC is not going to limit themselves to only 2 teams. Big Ten is not going to limit themselves to only 2 teams.
Well, wait a minute. Here, you gotta hear this.
You got one more minute. We're at the 9-minute mark. You got one more minute.
Okay, hold on, Greg. Just give me a second.
One more minute.
Stick with me. Okay. The playoffs start in the conferences because there really only are 3 conferences, and this allows us to maintain our traditions. But there will also be an outlet for other teams to get in. That would be the Independent Invitational, which takes place, which could be 1 game, could be 2 games, depending on the year. We need to have a body that has the power to include teams and to use the Independent Invitational as necessary to limit the teams. Okay, so then you get by middle of December, you've got your 2 teams that are going to your championship game. You've got then the next series of playoffs are the bowl games. Okay,
you got 20 seconds.
The bowl games. And then after the bowl games, okay, so then you have after the bowl games, then you have your playoff set. And it should be hopefully only 4 teams at that point. Okay, you'll have the SEC champion, the big champion, the third 25 champion, and a wild card.
Okay.
And more wild cards if necessary if, for example, there are teams out there, major teams, that have essentially the same record as the conference champion.
Got it.
Be included. Okay, so
that's
what I wanted to talk about.
Appreciate it.
Flexibility. I hope that made some sense. It
yes,
is written
it did.
Down in there. Did that make some sense, Chris?
Yes, it did.
What I said?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
That's important. We got that going on, guys. Let's keep our traditions. Let's make sure everybody gets a shot. Because last year, Greg, let's look at the conference.
Okay, beautiful. You made your point. You made your point. I thank you. Thank you so much.
How did USC and USC and UCLA I still don't know.
Okay, 763-260-1333. Thanks for calling. I do have, we got to put a 10-minute time limit on this stuff.
Call from
Ryan.
Ryan, thanks for calling. The floor is yours.
Hey, thank you, Greg. Hey, you have a great community. I just want to congratulate you on that.
Well, I congratulate the people in that community that makes it great. So thank you so much.
For sure. Hey, I was wanting to just talk on a couple things. I think that with the playoff, I think you've got I think that you had a good point of the other day where it's going to expire in 2 years after it comes up. And we don't know maybe what it will be like.
Yep.
My gut, my peek around the corner is I think that in the first 2 years, the 2 most controversial things will revolve around the auto bids and the first round buys. Because I think those are going to be where you're going to have the most potential for being like, oh, that person didn't deserve to be there. And I think that that's going to create the most controversy. The other thing I think will be the most successful is going to be those first round buys. The home games.
Yeah.
I think those are going to be the things that are going to be super valuable. And I think when they look at it, I would not be surprised if they're going to expand from 12 to 16. I think the reason that I think that's a real possibility is I don't think anybody thinks it's going to go 32. I don't think that will ever happen because you're not going to add an additional round to college football playoff. But if you add additional games, I think that that's doable. And I think that the first and second round will most likely become home games, home site games. Because you can have a team like Georgia that in the first 2 years potentially will have no home games. And then when they redo it, could potentially have 2 home games in the same season. So that's kind of one thing. I think we don't know what the playoff will be, but I wouldn't be shocked if it expands and the auto bids go away altogether. And the other thing I was thinking is like this Apple deal is potential high risk. Of it might be successful, but I don't look at it as the Pac-12 will be necessarily ahead of the curve as much as you're kind of the first one doing it, and everybody's going to watch you and see what works, what doesn't work. It reminds me a lot of the Mountain West TV network, which was one of the first conference networks. Pretty much an epic failure. It was horrible. I mean, if you think the Pac-12 network has been bad, and it has, like, it was nothing compared to what the Mountain West network was. But all these other conferences looked at it, saw the failures of it, and improved on it. I've worked in streaming for a lot of years, and I do know it's a much different delivery than your traditional broadcast. And so in these first 5 years, there's going to be a little bit of a growing pain. You're most likely going to have additional technical difficulties that your traditional broadcast hasn't had. And so I think that, that's what the Pac-12 is just going to have to be aware of, that's something they're going to have to work with. They're going to have to go through these growing pains. Anyways, those are just the two things that I want to throw in there. But I really do appreciate the work you do. I really love that whenever you report a story, you also cite the story so I can go look at that. But keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. Thanks for that great call. Appreciate it. Yeah, there would be growing pains, definitely, with the heavy streaming deal, with the light streaming deal, like with the Big Ten. We don't know what it's going to look like on Peacock for those 8 games. We don't know the viewership. We don't even know if it's going to work. So, again, yeah, absolutely. That's why I don't think this is the only thing that they're working on. I absolutely have every reason to believe that what's reported by 365 Sports, buttressed by Arizona State guy, yes, this is something that is brewing. But I don't think that's the only thing that's brewing. I don't think Amazon's out of this. I think there's another deal that could work with ESPN, Amazon, cobble it together, a couple other linear media partners. I think that's also being worked on as well. I know that's not what 365 Sports said. I know that they're not even, and they didn't say it wasn't being worked on. I don't think this is the only thing. But this is something that's being worked on. And can they get all the 10 presidents to sign up on it? Wow, what a gamble. I don't know. But it's coming down here. Decisions are going to have to be made. From what we are hearing, there is consternation, there is pressure.
Call from
Eric.
The floor is yours, good sir. I did not catch your name.
Eric. Calling.
Eric, thanks for calling, sir. What do you got in your mind?
I just want to talk to you just about a few things. I won't take up too much of your time tonight.
No problem.
And I mean this respectfully. I try to be respectful to all your callers.
Yeah.
But not the last guy, he was great, but the gentleman before,
yeah,
I really have a hard time understanding where he's coming from at all. Some of his takes and comments just seem nonsensical, so you might want to look at that just from a quality of show standpoint. But that's your decision. I respect that. As long
as no one is using hate speech or spends time degrading another person in the PATC community, I'm going to let those calls come in. I will say that I'm going to probably start limiting calls no longer than 10 minutes for sure. Hopefully we'll get it to 6 or 7 minutes. I think it's going to take time. But yeah, I have no problems with that type of phone call. I don't have any problems with phone calls coming in and ripping on me. As long as no one's using hate speech, No one is degrading somebody that's in the PATC community. I'm fine with the phone call. But go ahead. Keep going.
I totally understand. The one thing, and I respect that, the one thing is like it was a total carbon copy of the last call. He hadn't changed anything from a while back. But the one thing that really blew my mind, he keeps referring to BYU as BYU being in this independent group.
Yeah.
It's like, wake up, smell the Folgers. They're in the Big 12. They're as much in the Big 12 as any of the other Big 12 members. In fact, they're probably one of the top 4 most valuable schools in the Big 12 now. And they ain't going to go anywhere. And they're going to compete for a conference spot as a member of the Big 12 like anybody else. And I don't know why anybody would say any different. Okay, Notre Dame's independent. West Virginia's in the Big 12. They've been in the Big 12 for years. They're not going anywhere else either unless they go to another conference. But BYU is a Big 12 member. They're not an independent. They're not going to be qualifying for the college thing as an outsider, as a maybe third-party independent. Maybe some years will let you compete for it kind of thing. They're in the Big 12, period. That's number one. They're not independent.
Yeah.
So I don't even get where he's coming from there. That seems kind of the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is we talked about this several times, and there's all this background music. And one more thing first, I want to vouch for the 365 guys because I know him well. I've been following him for years. David and his son and Paul. He kind of took a shot at them, personal shot at them, and I'll say you won't see 3 more classier guys than them. And as far as their knowledge, if you follow their show at all, especially David, he's been in this business for 40 years. He has connections that go far-reaching from one end of the country to the other end, to the middle, to all conferences with all kinds of coaches and all kinds of people. And they have all kinds of connections to say that they're the last person you should ever go to for any information about any other conference than the Big 12 or the Pac-12 is a bunch of bull. And they're well-respected in the industry. And they don't just talk about the Big 12. They have coaches and stuff on from all over the country. So I didn't think that was really fair to take a shot at them. I'll vouch for them any day, and they're all class acts as well.
And I will also vouch for the fact that, and again, take this however you want it. You can disbelieve me, and I'm not saying you, Eric, but people in the chat. I know okay, I better not use the word fact, but I know I'm pretty dang sure they've gotten parts of the story absolutely nailed correctly. And I'm not going to go into any deeper than that. So they are talking with, they are onto something. Again, though, I always point this out. Not always, but most of the time. There's always bigger parts to the story that sometimes you just don't see everything else. Like I peek around the corner. I mean, my goodness. In that USC story and all the stories that we've been involved with, and it was before the USC story in the spring of last year. There's been other stories. Even when we've absolutely nailed something, we've only saw one part, like a narrow part of that story. And that's the problem with any people reporting and getting sources, and you've got something, but there's always something else that you can't quite see.
That is correct. That's correct. And if you followed their show, since the starting of this realignment saga, they're far from Pac-12 bashers. In fact, they said for the longest time that they thought the most likely outcome is that they stay together till recently. And David was always saying that for the good of college sports, because he's kind of a traditionalist at heart, he likes the rivalries and stuff. He actually was always saying he wanted them he hopes they did stay together. So it's not like they're just, Big 12 homers, like you kind of got the sense that he was kind of trying to portray. And the other thing I want to mention is that I think all this back and forth and stuff, a lot of it's background music. I think it really just comes down to 2 things, and I said this before: leverage, leverage, leverage. When you go in to make a deal, you have to have leverage. The Pac-12 has almost zero leverage. So they have to take the deal that they're given because ESPN and Apple holds all the cards. They hold almost none. They can take or leave the Pac-12. They kind of like it, but they don't need it. And that's kind of where they're at. And so that's why that's the deal they're going to be presented with, and they're going to have to decide if they want to take it or not. And then the other thing is, they say the money talks, blank walks. I won't say the word on your family show, but it's going to come down to what's going to really tell you the truth of the story is, can they get who signs the grant of rights? They can talk all they want that they're unified, they're together, this, they're that. The proof in the pudding is, will they sign the grant of rights, and who signs the grant of rights? That'll show you how unified they are, as they say. They're all together and they're unified. Well, let's see who signs the grant of rights. And I'll bet you that they can't get all 10 of them to sign the grant of rights. That's my prediction. And when they can't, that's when they end up falling apart. And my prediction, I'd say it's 70-30 right now that they don't stay together. But you're also starting to hear more noise from some sources, and I don't have any sources. I don't claim any sources, but other people that have sources are claiming that the Big 12 is getting closer to the point where they really believe that this ACC thing's about to explode, that there's 2 or 3 schools that are about to challenge the grant of rights and that they have a good chance of succeeding. And they may be getting to the point where they tell the Pac-12 schools, well, most of you missed your boat, except for maybe 1 or 2 of you, or maybe even all of you, and we're more in content to wait for the ACC because we think we'll have more valuable opportunities then. So the Pac-12 better not keep Brett Yormark on the string for too long, because I don't think that he's going to wait forever, and I think he has more leverage than they do.
All righty. Great call.
And one last thing, I just want to say you have a great show. You're classy, and again, my wife says hi to the little general over there in Minnesota, and she's the little general here in Mesquite.
All right. All of us husbands need a little general, no doubt about it.
Yeah, she's the one here in Nevada for me. So you have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you. Thank you, Jared Jones. Appreciate you, Greg, and the PATC community. Thank you so much, Mr. Buckeye, for that super chat, helping us keep the lights on here at Peek Around the Corner. We appreciate you so very much. I think I lost. The phone almost came in. Phone call. Didn't quite make it. Daniel Montecastle, Mr. Hoosier.
Call from
Wild Ute.
Wild Ute. Can you hold on just one moment, sir?
Absolutely.
Daniel Montecastle, I appreciate you, good sir, Mr. Hoosier. Wow. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, good friend. You are definitely, you're keeping the lights on. You're keeping everything running here in the Gopher by the Grace of God studios here at Peek Around the Corner. Appreciate Mr. Hoosier. Daniel, the Indiana Hoosiers have the #1 most difficult football schedule for 2023 and #2, but the second most difficult football schedule for 2023 is my beloved Golden Gophers. So we got a lot of work. We got a lot of work ahead of us. Go Wild Dude. The phone call. The floor is yours. Thanks for calling, Mr. Utah Man. Let's go.
Yeah, hoping that after the first point we could have a little bit of a dialogue conversation. But really, first point here, you've mentioned a few times that this Apple TV deal is a huge gamble. That's like the word, it's a huge gamble.
Yeah, I think it is. I understand if people disagree with me, though, but I think it is.
It seems like it's a huge gamble, but I'm not so sure it is.
Okay.
I mean, let's think about this for a second, okay?
Yep.
So, really, limited linear TV windows are available. And also, as you pointed out, and I completely agree with, the ESPN and Fox apparently are trying to, I don't know if they're tanking or lowballing. They obviously don't care much for PAC content. So they don't care to keep them afloat, to say things nicely, but possibly trying to ruin the Pac-12. So really, you've got the two huge linear players that don't really want in bed with the Pac-12, and plus there's limited windows anyway. So really, if you're going to stay together, what are your options? Best case scenario. I mean, yeah, you can go to the Big 12, get better linear exposure, but if you're staying together, it just kind of sucks anyway. So if you're rationally looking for different options, isn't it better just to play this Apple TV card and be a little bit disruptive and try to get away from ESPN and Fox if they're trying to tank you? If
George Kliavkoff called me today, which he should, George, give me a call. I would. This is not the worst case scenario. If this is the deal that happens, it's not the worst case scenario. I've often said, Arizona State guy told us in his I think it was his last letter. He said ESPN definitely has to be part of this deal. So this and if ESPN truly has the number one selection for all 13 of those games, I can't imagine that they would, though. I don't know why Apple TV would get in that type of deal. But anyways, I think you could cobble I would advise doing all you can to get more linear, obviously. Right? Go back with CW, go back with ION, try to get in with Warner Brothers, TNT, TBS. Do something to where the linear is over 50%. We've had this discussion before. I don't think we're ready for this heavy streaming deal. I don't think in recruiting, in sponsorship, for just the whole package, I don't think a major conference like the Pac-12, I don't think the consumer, I think the athletic departments will get buried in exposure. So I think it's a huge gamble. I think there would be something better out there. I do think the Pac-12 is working on something besides this. I know I'm probably the only one saying that. I really do. But this is emerging as one potential package. There is true steam behind this, and I do think it's a gamble. I understand where you're coming from, though. It's like...
Well, you just made the point here, and I totally understand it. But the CW, TV?
Yeah.
What a joke.
Yeah, I know it is.
That is a joke. Like that... seriously, I
understand.
Who actually goes to those channels? I mean, what kind of ratings are we? Are we expecting ratings are going to be better on ION or CW versus Apple? No way. No way.
I don't think you're. I don't think.
Be honest about this.
I don't. I think I can make that argument. Yes, I think I can. That's how down I am on this heavy of a streaming deal. Basketball, I can never see myself going all those basketball. I can't see myself going to Apple TV on basketball. But that's just me. I
can't see myself going to ION TV for anything. I mean, honestly, that's just imagine how crappy the production's going to be on ION TV.
Well, who just signed? ION just signed a WNBA deal. I think they're getting into it. I think they're getting into the sports space. Correct? So I'm not saying those are great deals. I'm just saying I definitely forget about all the other things. Forget about what I just said. The gamble between taking this heavy streaming deal with Apple TV and versus deciding to enter into the Big 12 if you're in Arizona State. When it comes to just the athletic portion of this discussion, argument, I think it's a huge gamble. Maybe I'm so heavily biased because I'm 55 years old. I'm not the brightest bulb in the refrigerator, right? So I just don't see my brain when I'm sitting watching my Saturday games, which I've been doing since I was 6 years old. I just don't see myself even thinking about Apple TV. Literally. Like it's going to be completely out of my head. So I think it's a huge gamble. Go ahead, though. You got the floor. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. That's good stuff. I cut the cord a long time ago.
Yep.
So, I mean, I can put up like an antenna, you know, on my TV and stuff and catch some of these things. But, I mean, I don't have, you know, like Comcast or anything. And in fact, I'm in my late 30s, and none of my friends have that either, like no cable anymore or anything. So I guess for me, I'd rather have superior production through Apple TV than go on a CWRI. And I mean, honestly, I just think that's really an epic fail and really embarrassing, honestly, as like a PAC fan, just to even think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd much rather go to the Big 12 than to put PAC-12 content on CW. But anyway,
go ahead.
I'm almost done.
No problem. You got as much time as you want because I interrupted you. Go ahead.
In this one, I think this is kind of what's lurking underneath it all, and this is what I'm really curious about. Like, so if ESPN and Fox, you know, they're lowballing the PAC, apparently, you know, they might not want them around in the future. I'm guessing at that, but I want to hear your thoughts on this. What's the motives for kind of taking the PAC and trying to eliminate the PAC?
I think their motive. I think their motive is because they see others. They see the schools in the great schools of the Pac-12. Some of them being greater assets to other conferences in the country. Like the regional conference doesn't work for them anymore, you know, except for the SEC. I think I, and it's not just it's other people, just have come to this conclusion that the networks are kind of out on the Pac-12. They're just out. That's why, you know, if the Pac-12 would have extended themselves, would have expanded, could have successfully expanded within the last 20 years to go into the Central Time Zone, be more of a two-region conference, not more of, to be a two-region conference, they'd be in a better spot right now. But they're not. And I think, you know, even in Utah, go right down the line. I think they see them better somewhere else. Be better assets somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's something that I'll be thinking about too. But
yeah.
Hey, thanks for your time, Greg.
Appreciate
Happy
it.
Friday.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Great call. Okay, so we're at the part of the show where Tony Petitti is going to be talking here, hopefully soon. He's at his introductory press conference. Darrell Pines, the University of Maryland president, is speaking. I have shut off the phone for right now. I just want to, if you have the Big Ten Network, go and give it a watch. I'll be giving you my real time comments in regards to whatever he says, and I don't think he's going to say much. This has been going on for 7 minutes. Hopefully, we see Petitti talk here pretty soon, and I will read you what he is saying. You know, Jared Jones says, I can switch from Fox, CBS, NBC to CW and ION with one push of a button. Can't do that with Apple TV, and that might change. Maybe it's going to be easier to flip to Apple TV, to an Amazon, to a Peacock. So maybe that will change in a year or 2 years from now. It could. They'll figure it out, I'm sure. And that shouldn't be that big of a deal, but I don't know. For an idiot like me, it's you know, and it's just not. We've talked about it. Monovision and people here, we've talked about Big Ten. They don't have a clue what's going to happen with those 8 Peacock games. I mean, maybe they think they have a clue, but what's going to happen with those 8 Peacock games? They're going to get decent viewership? Are they going to get blown out of the water? Is a Maryland-Virginia game on Peacock on a Friday night, are they going to get destroyed by Syracuse versus Boston College? ACC on ESPN 2 on a Friday night? I'm just throwing out an example. So we'll see. You know, it's the great unknown. And I'd rather go into the great unknown with 8 games, 8 football games, instead of in the 40s, in the low 50s. My goodness. I don't know. It's a gamble. And it's going to be fascinating to watch if that is the deal. Again, I truly believe there's other stuff being worked on by Kliavkoff. He's under pressure to deliver some options to the Pac-12 presidents. We believe at Peek Around the Corner, we have lots of reasons to believe this, that this is coming down to a bubble of action between now and about May 17th. That's what we've been told. That's the expectations that some of these Pac-12 presidents are putting on George Kliavkoff. I would be blown away if we see a Pac-12 president come on an interview with Wilner, Kazano, or something and say, well, we're looking at the end of June to get a deal done, or middle of June. They're not saying anything. They haven't been. Only the Colorado chancellor, who really isn't the decision maker at the University of Colorado when it comes to this type of thing, only has the chancellor of Colorado spoken to anybody recently, right? They've all been silent. Robbins hasn't said a word since he's come back from the great country of Kazakhstan, for Pete's sake, right? He hasn't said a word. Michael Crow hasn't said a word. So, we'll see. Again, we're waiting for Tony Petitti. Hopefully it happens here soon. Thanks for all joining us here on a morning, now afternoon, Friday, April 28th here at Peek Around the Corner. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Hit the $sign in a comment if you want to make a donation to the show. But please subscribe to our channel. You'll get notified of whenever we pop on. We can pop on here at any time. We could have popped on last night, but the NFL draft was on. So we knew that people were consumed with the first round of the NFL draft. So we popped up on this morning. We could do it again tonight if we get more intel or more breaking news. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Again, we are waiting for Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten, as the University of Maryland's president keeps rambling on and on and on and on. Mo Vision, Peacock could very well show those games for free in an attempt to convert viewers to subscribers. The delay of the Pac-12. Grateful Trojan. I'm sure this is I'm sure this is a somewhat of a joke. Grateful Trojan, the delay of the Pac-12 deal has beaten me into submission enough to want the Ducks in the Big Ten. Okay, let's go. Wrap this up. President of Maryland, let's go. Okay, you've been talking for a while here. You have to read his bio. You know that Mr. Petitti has played an important role in not only the Bowl Championship Series, but one of his most important life experience is the simple fact that he himself was a student athlete, a baseball player at his alma mater. Okay, wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. Kellini, as advertisers move away from linear, it doesn't matter how convenient it is for college football viewers. Broadcast TV won't be able to pay for the expensive media rights. But we're also seeing these streaming companies losing billions of dollars. Peacock is losing $3 billion this year. Just this year alone. Okay, finally we have Tony Petitti. He's up at the mic. Okay, he's talking. And if he says anything, again, I don't expect much. He's thanking everybody. He appreciates everybody for their support. He is the 7th commissioner in conference history. Only the 7th one. The conference has been around since 1896. He's talking about how he went to the 41st Women's Big Ten Golf Championship. Illinois won the Big Ten Championship. Congratulations. Will there be a question and answer for Petitti? I'm guessing yes. There better be. Now, I don't expect much. None of us expects much. But again, here we've been on the air for 2 hours. Peek around the corner, live show. Thanks for coming on in. And we're just seeing if we get any worthwhile information. I would like some clarity on when we're going to learn more about the 2024 football schedule. That's what I'm looking for. Larry Keith, wonder if Apple will charge an additional fee to watch Pac-12 content, much like ESPN charges extra for ESPN Plus. Pay for the cable service that has ESPN, then additional fee for ESPN Plus service. I think they will. I think they will. Now, again, a lot of this is Apple TV might not even have any part of the Pac-12 media deal, right? But if they do, you would think they would charge for the extra content for Pac-12 content. I mean, they're in it to gain subscribers. They're also in it not to take a huge loss. They have to get their money in some way. Craig is saying Apple absolutely charge a fee for the Pac, just like they do MLS. I don't know how much the MLS fee is. It like $100 for the year or something? For the season? Craig says, get back to me when a streaming company turns a profit. Well, this could be a long speech here. This could be a long speech. So I think we're going to close it up. I think we're going to close up this live show. I'll probably keep watching this, make some comments on Twitter, but I feel like I'm holding you all over for something that who knows? This could be a 40-minute speech here. So I appreciate you all coming in. Again, before you leave, make sure you subscribe to our channel because we could pop up at any time. If he says something worse, something that's we think is important, we could pop up on immediately afterwards. Okay, or we do an episode on it. So subscribe to the channel, share the video with your family and friends. We appreciate you all coming in. The great comments, the great phone calls. Thank you for the generous donations that we received here at College Football Peek Around the Corner. Hang with us. Hang with us because we're going to be continue to cover this Pac-12 saga. Is it going to be an Apple TV, ESPN deal, 80-20? Or is it going to be an Apple TV plus ESPN? Maybe a couple other linear companies? It could be going that way as well. We don't know, but we do believe here at Peek Around the Corner, the time for choosing is closing in. It's coming. They've got to make a decision. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. So much. Thank you so much for coming on in. Until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.